Today we're going to discuss something that we hope we don't have to do too often. In fact, the less we do it, the more successful we are. And I'm talking about accident investigations. But before we go any further, let's define an accident. An accident is an unexpected event with negative consequences. It could be damage to property, equipment, products, or in the worst case, injury to personnel. And accidents typically happen because someone does something that they shouldn't, or doesn't do something that they should do. The investigation will help us determine which of these it was. It will also tell us if it was the result of an unsafe act or an unsafe condition. Now, contrary to what you might think, both of these still lead back to someone doing or not doing the right thing. Please bear in mind, someone might create an unsafe condition that ends up hurting someone else. Now, no one wants or expects to have an accident. In fact, in the few seconds before an accident happens, the individual or individuals involved seldom see it coming. I mean, after all, if they did, they would stop and make an adjustment, and the accident would and could be avoided. What we need to recognize is that every accident is an opportunity to identify hazards that exist in the workplace, and then to take measures to prevent a recurrence of the incident. That's the real purpose of the investigation, to keep the incident from happening again. And that's where you as a supervisor come in. It's one of your more important responsibilities. Now, granted, you have a lot of responsibilities. You have a responsibility to set a good example, to enforce the rules and enforce them uniformly, to train your employees, to retrain them if necessary, to perform job site inspections, facility inspections, and as we'll discuss today, to perform accident investigations when something unexpected happens. Now, believe it or not, put quite simply, accidents are the result of a failure in the management system. That's right, management's failure. But we'll get back to that in just a little bit. Before we do, let's take a quick look at the who's and why's and the when's and the what about the investigation process. So why do we do the investigation? As I said before, the purpose of the investigation is to establish a number of things. First, to determine the real cause of the accident. And by real, we mean the root cause. Next, we want to identify measures to be taken to prevent a recurrence. After all, we have to learn and grow from our mistakes, right? And a third, less frequent objective is to see if someone else contributed to the accident, someone we may be able to hold financially accountable or subrogate against. Now, who should perform the investigation? The answer is simple: the immediate supervisor of the worker or of the job site. After all, the immediate supervisor has a personal interest and knows the job site and the workers. They also know how and from whom to get the needed information, and it will most likely be the one to implement corrective actions. The supervisor is immediately accountable for the accident, so we want to hold them accountable by having them fill out the form. Next, what about what should it accomplish? It should describe what happened. It should determine the real cause of the accident, assess the potential for a recurrence, develop controls to eliminate the hazard, look for trends, and overall demonstrate concern for our workers and their well-being. Finally, we need to determine the potential severity of the accident. Now, in most instances, the investigation should not be performed by an outside party, like an HR person or even the safety director, because the workers will be less likely to provide information to an outside person, and the investigator will not have the benefit of knowing the job site and the players. Also, time is of the essence. The investigation should be performed as soon as possible after the incident, not hours later or the next day, because people forget the details, which are vital to the investigation. I mean, think about it. Most of us forget what we were doing just about 24 hours ago. And the conditions at the accident site change as well. So it's important to be on the scene looking at the aftermath. So how do we investigate? First, we want to isolate the areas I just said. In essence, you want to preserve the evidence. Did the accident involve a piece of equipment, a tool, PPE? Is there an opportunity for subrogation there? Draw diagrams, or better yet, take pictures. You'll want to interview the witnesses, but do so separately. We don't want them to just agree with one another. We lose too many details that way, any one of which could be crucial. It's important that the witnesses know that you're trying to determine the cause, not who's at fault, and the details will help us establish a cause and effect relationship or a timeline for the accident, things that will help identify the underlying cause. So let's take a look at the cause. In most cases, there's an immediate cause. Taking care of it is like putting on a Band-Aid. It'll stop the bleeding, but it doesn't do much to prevent a recurrence. Of course, we need to correct the immediate cause, like to eliminate the hazardous condition that caused the accident, like clean up the spill or put on the proper PPE, or remove the defective tool or piece of equipment. At the end of the investigation, what we're really looking for is the root, or as I said, the underlying cause. Finding it will lead to a long-term solution and provide the safest environment going forward. It's just more difficult to find and difficult to implement. So what exactly is the root cause? To find the root cause, you ask this question: what did management fail to do? That's right, as I said before, the root cause is management's failure, not the employee or the employees involved. For example, did management assign the wrong person to the task? Fail to train the employee? Fail to properly equip the employee with tools or personal protective equipment? Failed to correct previous bad behavior that they witnessed? Failed to terminate the employee for that? Now, granted, the employee did something they shouldn't have done, or didn't do something that they should have. But in both instances, they probably had made the mistake before and no one said anything. Or they were improperly trained or instructed in the first place. To really perform an effective investigation, we need to identify what we need to do to make certain a similar incident does not happen again. Simply put, we need to learn from our mistakes, our shortcomings, and our oversights. So there you have it. An accident investigation is a very important component in any safety program. And don't forget, you should investigate near misses as well, and accidents where equipment or property is damaged, even if no one gets hurt, because next time, we may not be so lucky. So when it comes to safety, there's no room for just plain luck. Finally, remember, do every job at a pace where the task gets done right the first time and no one gets hurt in the process. As always, good luck and work safe.